Crystin. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you and hear about everything real estate. So take us back to the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and what did you want to be when you were younger?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here. I grew up in Latham, New York. So we moved here when I was 4 years old. Actually, we moved to Queens, New York, and I stayed there for a couple of years.
Where did you move from?
Cairo, Egypt.
So you were born in Egypt.
I was born in Egypt. We came over on a free lottery visa. So my entire family, my brother, my sister, father, and mother came to the States. And then we stayed in Queens, New York for about a couple of years and then moved up in Latham. So I mostly grew up there. I went to Shaker High School, graduated, went to Sage College of Albany for my bachelor's, and then I decided to get into real estate shortly after that. My thought process was to get into Albany Law School and do real estate law, but I was also working at a brokerage at that time too, so I thought, why don't I get my real estate license? I did take my LSATs, got into Albany Law School, and thought I'll wait on that for a little bit. The tuition was just so much money. I'm like, do I want to spend money on this or just get into real estate? So I decided to get my license, and here we are about 10 or 11 years later. And
I didn't realize you took your LSATs. That's really impressive.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was very, very hard. But becoming an attorney, honestly, is something that I still think about doing. But right now, real estate's really just what my main focus is.
Did you want to be a lawyer when you were younger, or were you just kind of like, oh, I'll go to law school, or because I wanted to be a lawyer when I was younger, and then when I realized how much work it was, I was like, never mind.
Sure. The first thing I wanted to be is a female surgeon, which clearly never happened. I am not good with needles, so we learned really quickly that was not going to happen. I started to go into the fields of accounting because my mother did accounting back in Egypt. Did that for 2 years, got my associates in that, and realized I definitely was not meant to be an accountant. So law school was it. Criminal justice was something I was interested in. I like the legal, I like the documents. I did estate planning as well. So I thought if I became an attorney, that by trade is a real estate broker, so I would handle both of those types of fields. But then I just decided, let me try the real estate. I felt that was a little more fulfilling in my career. Obviously a lot less expensive to get into.
Yeah, I know.
And it was different. I was out. I was not in an office. I'm not meant to be in the office.
Yeah.
That I learned.
Yeah. So you talked about working for a real estate broker. That was your foot in the door, I guess, so to speak, into real estate. So when you worked for that broker, were they you need to get licensed, or were you admin? How did you progress in your real estate career?
Sure. So I first got hired as an administrative assistant. I worked at a Realty USA in East Greenbush, and I worked there for a couple years, mostly part-time when I was in college. And then shortly after that, when I decided to get my real estate license, I did a couple transactions there, and then I was there for, 5 or 6 years between my transition of junior high, high school, college, and then getting my license. And so at that point, I just needed change. I needed a new office. Rensselaer County wasn't quite my territory. I grew up in Latham, so I wanted to focus more on Albany and Colony. And so that's when I moved to Miranda Real Estate Group. And I moved there about 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Cool. So in 2018, you took the leap. You got your broker's license. You started Crystin Co Realty, and I think it was, when was it? Earlier 2019, earlier this year, when you got this beautiful office on State Street, right in downtown Schenectady. So for a number of reasons, most agents, they don't want to take that step to become a broker, just mainly because of the legality and hassle. What made you take that leap and become a broker?
Well, I had done a rental business for a really long time, and I thought if I was going to become a broker and really start doing this on my own, let me take some baby steps. I'd start with the rentals. Those were easy. I was already handling the majority of them anyways, so it was just a matter of where I was processing my deals. And I also had a client that I knew was going to have a pretty sizable project, and in order to provide him the package that he was looking for, I really just needed to take that leap of faith. So it was a combination of a couple of things. It was future business, it was current business. I was given an opportunity in April to lease this space. So all the dice kind of rolled at the same time and landed at the same time. So it was scary because here's my name in a window right on downtown Schenectady. Like, now I have to get it together, not that I didn't, but it was like game on. But it was comfortable because I was doing something I already had been doing, and the rentals were like the backside of my hand. So I had to stop getting fearful of it and just saying, this is it. This is the next step in my chapter, and what a better position to be in, and it worked out.
So for our audience listening, I would encourage our audience to check out the show notes or watch the video of this interview, because it is really beautiful. We're in the heart of downtown Schenectady. There's a fireplace, a beautiful table, like high ceilings. Like it really is. It's a beautiful office.
Thank you.
So since you got your broker's license and you've been Crystin Co, what do you attribute your success? Because you've been successful in this industry in your career. Like, was it the right place, right time? You mentioned, that client you had that kind of made you want to take that leap of faith so you could offer him what he wanted. Was it your experience, the market, like connections? What is it that you think attributed, or a combination, to your success?
I think it's a combination of just the great relationships I have with my clients. They believed in me more than anybody. And it really did help, because you always fall back to family or friends, but your clients are your business. They're your bread and butter now. They're your bread and butter for the future. And if they believe you, then what are you missing? So that really played a factor. And just because I've been doing the rentals for a while, to me, it was just go for it. I can't fail in it. Failing wasn't an option. If that was the case, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be getting large projects like 27 units on Knott Terrace in Schenectady, or 40 unit buildings in Boston Spa. So, being able to see that my clients believed in me, it was just a no-brainer. Like, you shouldn't worry about what people think of you, but to some degree, my clients are everything to me. So I respect that, and that helped me take that leap of faith. Yeah.
Do you, were they sort of thinking, I'm sure you think in every decision you make, you think about your clients and how it will affect them. So I'm sure this was one of those decisions.
And this really impacted my clients a lot. It was my determination to get these apartments leased really quickly, and it was the percentages that I was able to take them at, the commission breaks that they had. So it helped them, it helped me, it got my name out. And it's just the next chapter in my life. I started to think more as a broker than an associate broker or salesperson, and that took a mind shift, which kind of your behaviors start following. Once your mind is set to something, you just naturally propel to start moving. So it's like that treadmill. Once the treadmill moves, your legs automatically follow. So when my clients were like, look, here's this project, go for it, it was almost like, okay, let me jump right on. There was no thinking. So
what do you do to keep motivated? Do you have a routine? Do you have something that you I don't know, a mantra, or what is it that, do you have a routine that you do every day that keeps you going?
I do have a morning routine. It's funny because I always listen to Carrie Underwood's Champion in the morning.
Really?
That, to me, that song just pumps me up. And it's Carrie Underwood and Ludacris. You have to listen to it because it's such a combination of country and rap. And it was a song for the Olympics, so it just pumped me up, And so I listen to that in the morning. I go to the gym 3 times a week. That is really important to me because I feel like if you're physically healthy and mentally healthy, you could certainly do anything else after that. When I wasn't working out, I felt it. I just felt like a soft marshmallow. I needed to get it back into shape. So that really pushes me. Plus, I bet on myself. It was one of those where, okay, I have 40 units. How quickly can I get these leased? And I play these games and mental bets with myself, Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're realistic. Other times they're not. And I just got to put myself back into check. But it's just self-motivating for me. I really have stopped comparing myself to others. And
that's so hard.
Important.
It's hard to do.
It's really hard being in the field that we're in, right? We're very competitive, but I always think that's my name out there. So whether I did it better than the other person or I got that listing over the other person, I still have to fulfill that job. So for me, I just stopped looking at everybody else. I just focused on myself. This is my game to play. I'm in my own field. And this is what I do. I would be content making X amount, or I could be content making another X amount. Everybody has their stories, and you always hear, you can't judge a book by its cover. You just don't know. So I just blacked out all the white noise in the background and thought, this is just my life. This is my story. And I started keeping a journal. I have this one book of just everything that I've done for Crystin Co. Tracked, okay, this day I went to the office, or there was a period of time where I didn't come here for a couple of weeks, and I decided to come in on a Saturday morning, and just the feeling that I got stepping into the office, that was just so reassuring to me, okay, this is where I belong. And I needed that, so it kind of out of sight, out of mind, you forget about it, you become very stale, but just pushing myself to go back into the office, even if it was for 15 minutes, go get a coffee at Ville Italian, just walk in here, and that feeling I get walking into that door just makes me want to continue working. Plus, I love my clients, they love me. They become very great friends with me, and, I want to make them proud, and that makes me happy, so.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. Maybe you touched on this in the last question, but in most businesses, not just real estate, but in many businesses, especially entrepreneurs, we talk about the why and what your why is and what is it that you are striving for. So what is your why?
So my why kind of changes every year. When you set a main goal and then you're like, all right, this is why I'm doing what I want to do this year. I really want to take a vacation at the end of the year, go away for a couple of days, lay on a beach. So that really pushed me. I was okay forfeiting my spring and summer knowing that the apartments that I had, that's peak season. So could I moan every night coming home at 7:30 being like, oh, I need a break? Yeah, I could. But, this is the prime time, you know? So I stick it out. And
that's what allows you to go on vacation, right?
Right. So I wanted to go on vacation. My sister got married last year, so a lot of last year was prepping for that and some weddings for my other friends. So I really never got to do anything for myself last year. So this year, my why was do something for yourself. There's always a deep-rooted why to why I keep working, or I'm a workaholic, and that could just be rooted back to my childhood of growing up incredibly poor. My mother had to support 3 children on a $25,000 salary, so I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she continued to do it. It amazes me every time I think back to it. And I just never want to be in those shoes. I just don't. You know, I look at what Americans have here, and when I see somebody who takes things for granted, it just is so heartbreaking, because there's individuals who come here from out of the country who would just be glad living in the worst areas, but they own a home. That's the thing. They own a home before they can't own property. So while it might not be an area that you would live in, to them, it's pride and joy. So my why really changes every year depending on my goal, but my deep-rooted why is just from childhood and just not wanting to go back. Like, there is that fear of being poor, which, you know, some people would be okay and they survive, and I'm not high-end. I like to look and feel like that, but I certainly don't characterize myself as that. But, you know, money isn't always everything, but I just don't want that feeling of seeing my mother struggle. Not happening. Just not going to happen in my lifetime. Just not. I'll work 3 jobs, which I have done before. You know, I put myself through college. I paid off my student loans, $10,000 in a year, and, you know, bought my own car, live on my own. So, you know, I've become very independent, but my why definitely changes every year.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of that, definitely. But it's not about me, Crystin.
We can talk about you. I love you.
So, I wanted to ask about, like, a lot of this podcast is about giving back to people, and like, how can guests on this show offer advice or offer something to someone listening. So I framed this question, I don't know how like it sounds, but basically, in the rental business, what is the best advice that you have for somebody who's getting ready to rent their first apartment or buy their first home? What is something that you would suggest they do that would help them out?
You know, the rental qualifications has really dramatically changed, especially with the new laws that came into effect. You know, strong financials and credit is very important. If you're one of those people that subscribe to get free shoes once a month, cancel that subscription. You know, landlords will really, really look at what your expenses are, what your income is. You could have a 750 credit score, but you've got so many expenses that sometimes the landlord's like, how on earth are you really going to afford this? I mean, I see that you pay everything in full, but what if an emergency happens, you know? So really become financially smart in your budget. You know, when I was young, I was 21, but I got my first life insurance at that age, you know, so really get yourself with a financial advisor. That's my biggest recommendation. Renters, a lot of them are millennials. A lot of them like the life of convenience and not having to own a home because they don't have the time. They have that side hustle that they do. They don't have the time to maintain their lawn or snow or whatever it is. But being that a lot of millennials have this side hustle, save your money. Pay off the student loans.
Don't buy dumb stuff.
Don't buy dumb stuff. Exactly. It's going to hurt you when they look at your credit. You know, a lot of landlords want 3 times rent. So some people a year ago, 5 years ago, were okay with 2 times rent. And that is okay sometimes. But, you know, when you make 3 times rent, you're really in a good position.
What do you mean by making 3 times rent?
So like your gross, let's say the rent a month is $1,000, then you want to gross $3,000. So there's a safe cushion. It's not living paycheck to paycheck. You do have that one check for rent and then a little extra left over and then that secondary check. So a lot of times what I've seen before and a couple of years ago, it's one paycheck was completely towards rent and then you'd have the secondary bi-weekly check and that goes towards all your expenses and you really have nothing left, you know? So get with an financial advisor. Start young, you know, sort out your financials, especially if you have that side hustle. Obviously, you like to make money. Be smart with that.
Yeah. That's a good advice about the subscription services, because like you don't realize what an extra $50 or
Right.
like those all add up, especially if you have multiple subscriptions. Like I don't know, the one I'm thinking of is like if you have like the fitness box or
Sure.
like a
Yep.
or like
Shoe
a health
Dazzle is
shoe
one
or
of
whatever.
them.
Yeah, like Bark Box, like some of
Yes,
those, like
yes.
not sponsored, but
Yeah. Right. Or like the meals,
Right.
it's like, come on. I mean, go to the farmer's market, support your locals,
Yep.
get your meals. But again, it's all the lifestyle of the millennials, being convenient. I want it shipped to my door, the Amazon lifestyle. So, but, be financially smart, because most landlords do want a tenant there for at least 2 years. So when you are looking for an apartment, look at it from a 2-year standpoint. Moving sucks. Nobody likes that. So while the rent right now could be affordable, think about it in a 2-year span. Most rentals, prices will go up 3 to 5%. So when you search for an apartment, let's say your rent is $1,000, then expect a rent increase of $25 for $30, and then the following year the same. So budget as if you were paying $1,100 for rent and go that way. That way you can stay there for 2 years. You're not spending money on movers. You're not moving from one place to another. You've got forwarding addresses all over the place. And it'll reflect on your application. It's going to look like you move constantly, and that hurts you.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's good advice. So then I'm sure rentals is one thing and buying and selling a house is completely different. What do you like or maybe dislike over one or the other?
Sure. So I like rentals because I have a lot more control over them. Not that I hate on any of the realtors out there, but rentals you have control over. I mostly represent landlords, but then I also represent the tenant, who's the one that's calling and inquiring about the apartment. Buying and selling home, it's a lot more time. It could take 3 months to close on something. Yes, the commissions are so much larger, but if an average commission is $5,000 and it takes you 3 months to collect that, then you're thinking, well, I could have rented out 3 places in a week for $1,000 and made just as much. So after taxes and, deductions and so on. So the control plays a factor.
That's thinking like an entrepreneur, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, when this is your bread and butter, you have to think about it, especially from a financial standpoint. But I do like the rentals because I meet a lot of people, and I've sold homes to some of these renters 2-3 years down the road. And they're people too.
Right.
They still need a home. So it's not always about the dollar amount. Like, could I go out there and sell $500,000 home and make way more money than renting to someone who's looking for $1,000 apartment? I could, but then I have also rented that $1,000 apartment and sold them a $500,000 home 3 years later. So, and that's that built relationship, which I love. Like, it's the friendship that I get out of every transaction that makes everything worth it to me. So.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So when we first met, I told you
love this. I love this.
I was so intimidated by you because just like you mentioned earlier, like you have your like the way that you present yourself, and I think if someone doesn't know the real you, you could come across as very intimidating. So after I got to know you better, like you became a good friend, someone I look up to and like highly respect in this business. So, and there have been times where like I've, called you in tears over something because it just happens in the real estate business. So I look to you as somebody who, just I respect in this business. Who is somebody that you respect or has been rooting for you in your corner, either growing up or even now?
Sure. So Carol Steven in my office is a big one. She's, the first one that comes into mind because I remember the first time I had to start working with her on the Bentley project up in Clifton Park, and I had the same reaction to her that you had to me, where I was like, oh no, this can't be happening. I'm going to be in Willie's office in tears every day.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, I respect her because she knows her stuff. And what she doesn't know, she researches. And there's not an ounce of her that's lazy by any means. You know, if anything speaks like boss lady, it's her, you know, and she's got it together. And she is the most genuine person once you really get to know her. And I love that, you know, and she's always there to pick up my calls. She sympathizes with me. I'm always there for her when she needs to vent. So she really, really is somebody that has also rooted for me to say, go off on your own, do your thing, start with the rentals. You know, you've mastered that, so why not get what you've earned and worked really hard for? So she is that person that removes the training wheels, so to speak, and just says, dive right in. If you fall, you don't have a far way to go. Get right back up. So I love that. You know, I love being around people like that. That's where I need to be. So
yeah, because you are you're a product of who you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
So if you surround yourself with people who are complaining, who don't have that like quote unquote like winning mentality or whatever, then that brings you down. But when you surround yourself with people who are encouraging you to do your best and they are successful in their own, then you know that automatically, you know, that type of hard work and kind of you rub off on each other.
Yeah, you feed off of their energy. You know, in 2015, I had a lot going on in life. You know, I was separating from my husband at that point. I was moving on and living on my own for the very first time. So there came a part in my life where I was like, I need to sit down and I'm going to make a list of every single person that I ever talked to. And I took a red marker and just started crossing off. And it was brutal. I had a great glass of wine doing it, you know.
And this was in the comfort of your own home.
Oh, yes. And I wasn't publicizing any of it.
Oh, of course.
It was just a brain refresh.
Right.
I needed that refresh bad. It was like a ticking bomb that was just going to go off. So being surrounded with good energy people is very important. And that's what I did. I started crossing off people that I felt were taking my energy to a different level that I will never get it back, you know, and while I'm very, very helpful, I'm more than happy to help anybody and everybody, but there has to be a time for myself. And that mental state of mind, the law of attraction played a key factor in that. And I just started becoming more positive. I had an awesome year in real estate. And who would have known? Like, I was completely petrified going off on my own. And I had the best year yet, you know? So does fear push people? Absolutely. But the right mindset will definitely help you become a lot more successful and not just more desperate. And there was a difference between those two. So now I just keep it to a minimum with my friends. I would have much rather count on one hand my true, good, genuine friends than have, you know, acquaintances. You know, I'm more than happy, again, to help people. I love helping people, but if you're going to drain my energy, it's just not going to work. And anybody who knows me knows I do not hide my facial expressions. So one way or another, you're finding out.
You'll know.
Yes. I'll respond via email, but no.
I love it. So I guess kind of closing in on time, but like very quickly. So it's no secret that the real estate business is no stranger to conflict. It's an emotional business. You're helping people manage one of the biggest purchases of their life. And I see you as somebody who's not afraid of conflict, and you really go after what you want, and you really fight for your clients. And so we've talked about how you have to grow a thick skin in this business. Is that a trait you've always had, or is it something that you had to learn or adapt on your own?
I definitely had to adapt it because I did not have thick skin when I first started this. And there were multiple times, I'd probably say the first 3 years, where I'm like, I'm not cut out for this. Am I just being
not just me.
naive? No. It's, it's hard because you're also growing your confidence in the process, and having thick skin, while it's very important, I find that the positive energy is a better approach to it. So while a realtor could just be yelling on the other end, pissed off at something or whatever, I could be reactive and respond in a manner that I probably felt that I was justified, but that's going to ruin my day all day. And I just refuse to have somebody control my emotions. So I have just gotten better at just letting things go than having thick skin.
Water under the bridge.
It's water under the bridge. I'll have my hissy fit when we get off the phone. I might curse out your name behind your back. Who cares? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, next, and just not being controlled by all that minutia in the background. Mm-hmm. Just, I need my mindset to be in that mm-hmm. position. And if I react, then I feel like you've won, mm-hmm. and I don't like that. So it's part of your own physical mind mm-hmm. being, and thick skin is important when you're right and there's legal terms, but that's why there's also an attorney. So, you don't always want to step over what your expertise is like mm-hmm. or what you're responsible for. Mm-hmm. But I've just learned to just ignore the background noise. Mm-hmm. It's just simply not worth it. It ruins my day. It ruins everybody else that follows, and it's not fair to them. I could have missed out on an opportunity because you annoyed me for one mm-hmm. comment, and I've lost now, right. So I just, mm-hmm. I can't have that control let go.
I love that. That's really good advice.
Thank you. It took years to get there. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. This does not happen overnight because we're human. And if you have a heart, then you're going to use it. If you don't, then you don't care, and you're that person who just does not care how you affect people. I care, mm-hmm. Karma's there. Karma's out there, I like to sleep at night, and I like to have a clear conscience. And, to me, again, it's just let it go. Yep. Just let it go. It's not worth it. It's mm-hmm. just simply not worth it. Even if you were right. Even if you were right and you react in the way that they're looking for that response, then you still lost because right. they have that upper hand. They got that response that they wanted. They feel better. You don't. And the next person who calls you might end up feeling your vibe mm-hmm. that they didn't deserve to get. So
right. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
What do you do for lunch?
Oh, lunch. Well, when lunch is a part of my schedule, it's usually around 1:30 or 2. I, for the most part, because we are on the go, I'm an avid green smoothie from Panera type of lunch. But when I do get to sit down, I either pack a turkey sandwich, I try to keep it healthy, or have a salad. I'm really big on salads. But there was this one time, funny story, where I had visited one of my clients who are super, super family to me right now. And Tony's his name, Cindy and Tony, I love them. They had made a homemade sauce and meatballs the night before. So, of course, I had leftovers because they always give me leftovers, and this is the best part. So the following day, I had packed it, and it was one of those days that just every appointment ran later and later. And by then, it was like 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and I had a 4:30 appointment. So I did have a half hour in between my appointments to finally sit down and eat that ziti and meatballs that I've been thinking about all day and carrying around my car all day. And needless to say, my 4:30 appointment sent me a message, and they're like, oh, we could come a half hour early. I was like, no, you are not coming right now. So I I legit told them no, and that was the most empowering feeling I ever had, because I'm like, nothing is coming between me and my ziti and meatballs right now. So I sat there and literally scarfed it down, because no sooner were they like already parked to see the apartment, and I was just so like mixed emotions. But I gotta say, saying no, of course, always feels great, right? But then being able to say it just so that I could eat was even better.
You have to. It's like self-care.
Well, yeah, right, because no one wants to see me starving.
No.
It is not going to be a good look. But it was a funny story that I had to go back and tell Cindy and Tony about. So I was like, oh my God, I finally got to enjoy your leftovers, which I literally had to say no to an appointment, which never happens or rarely ever does. But typically I do try to keep it healthy for lunch, and mostly it's either smoothies on the go, and it's more of a later lunch, 1:30 to 2 o'clock. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. So how can someone listening get a hold of you if they want to reach you? Social media, website?
Sure. So I'm on social media. I certainly have our personal page. I have a Crystin Co page. I am always accessible on my cell phone. So my cell phone number, it's 518-986-5484. You could call or text me. Usually I'm pretty responsive unless I'm on the road or in an appointment, but yeah, phone is usually the best way.
And your website is?
CCO Realty LLC @gmail.com. Or that's my email, but my website, CCORealtyLLC.com.
CCO
Realty.
Okay, CCO Realty
LLC.com. Yeah, someone else has CCO Realty somewhere else, so I had to stick in that LLC in there to keep this different. But
everything will be linked in our show notes at workinglunchpod.com for anybody that wants to reach you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for
thank you
chatting
for
with me, Crystin.
I loved it. Thank you.
That was real estate broker owner Crystin Drowlette of Crystin Co Realty. For behind-the-scenes photos of our interview and a peek into her office, visit workinglunchpod.com. You can follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. We're at Working Lunch Pod. And if there's someone who you would like to be featured as a guest, email us at workinglunchpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to Working Lunch. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. And remember, your biggest strength is who you are.